Well, hello and welcome to today's Embroidery Studio E4.0 session. My name is James Timmons and I will be instructing you through this class today, and I thank you for joining me. Today, what we're going to go through basically, this is a 5 session class that we're doing, and it's a beginning series in ES4 for those of you who are just purchased your software or you're new to the embroidery industry, etc. And we're going to talk quite a bit about just some of the basic things that need to be done inside the program that will allow you to be able to, go through your projects in a timely manner and create quality embroidery for your customers. And there's quite a bit of things that we're going to talk about within these 5 sessions, actually 1 session at a time. Okay, and so I want to talk about when you're installing your program and the things that we need to look out for and need to be abreast of, because these are things that can help as far as maintenance in your software and being able to keep your software up and running on a daily basis. Now, right now, as you install the Willcome Embroidery Studio, you have also installed the Corel Draw as well. And with that, you have the complete full version of Corel Draw, which is what you see on my screen currently. And you also have a limited version of the Corel that's joined with the Embroidery Studio program, actually. This is basically because a lot of the functions here in the full version of Corel Draw, screen printers and designers use basically, we didn't have use of all of these items in our program because it's heavily based for embroidery. And so it was minimized or simplified, if you will, for our program. But you still have access to, and you can of course run Corel Draw independently, like I have it open here on my screen. Okay, and you could use this as far as going in right now. I'm just going to show you how simple it is just to copy a design from the Corel Draw or any other graphic program that you may have on your system. I'm just going to left click here, we'll draw a box. I'm going to right click my mouse button here, and I'm just going to choose copy. Okay, now I'm going to jump back over here to the Embroidery Studio. Okay, and this is the embroidery mode, and it's just as simple as me going in now and clicking on my paste tab here. And so you can paste your designs here inside the embroidery mode also. Okay, and again, you have several options of being able to go in and copy and paste designs here. Okay, we're going to get back to this, but I wanted to share with you some things that are vital, in the operation of your system on a daily basis. And when you install the Embroidery Studio software, as soon as you go in and your screen opens up like mine is here, if you haven't yet, you'll need to do what we call a screen calibration. Okay, the screen calibration allows you to go in. I'm going to navigate here up top, and it's going to be under your setup drop menu here. As I scroll down my list here, you'll see the screen calibration, and I'm going to left click it here. And it's going to give you a little screen here, a little box on your screen. So if you have not done this yet, basically what you'll need to do physically on your screen is you'll need to go in and get a ruler, and you'll measure the distance from this lower left corner here of my little small box here to my lower right corner here, and put the measurement here inside the width dimension box here. And you'll need to do the same also by left clicking here and to there and putting in the height for this little small box here on the screen. And this is in fact a one-to-one view. This is a one-to-one view of your screen is what this is here basically. And so once you've done that, you just click OK. You might see your screen nudge a bit. Okay, and once you've done that, some of you also, I'm going to click here on the grid to actually put it on the screen here. So after that, if you like to go in and set up your grid boxes on your screen, you can go back again to your setup tab here. You can choose options. And in your options here, basically, you can go in, you have tabs here. The one that we're going to look at here is for the view design. Okay. Now, when we go in, you'll see options here to select in order for to show the design to show up on your screen. And we also have one here also for grids and guides. Okay. You can decide how you want to set the dimensions up here for these little squares on your screen. And I use metrics, of course, but if you use inches, you can go in and you'll just type in, most people set them up as either 1-inch boxes or half-inch boxes. And you just type it in here. And this, I'll leave mine like here, but you just type 1.0 here, press tab and type in 1.0 here, and you just save it. Okay. And that will go in, basically, your grid boxes will adjust in size here on the screen. And so in that way, you'll have your grid set up as you go in and as you're working inside the program. Okay. Now, also, there's a option here also inside your program here under your design menu. As I select design, okay, I have options here. I'm just going to scroll down and I'm going to choose the auto start and end. Okay. And so this box here is very, very important in your daily productivity, because this box allows you to go in and make the settings up for your design start and stop inside your hoop. Okay. And so what needs to be selected at all times, unless you're doing a special project that would have you do something different, like you may be adding text to a print or something like that for multi decoration, and that would be a different situation. But here, normally on a daily basis, you want to make sure that the apply auto start and end here is selected, and you want to make sure also that the maintain automatically here is selected as well. The method auto start and end needs to be selected here. This here is hoop, and this little dot in the center here tells my machine basically that it's going to start and stop in the center. If you're doing caps, you can click here to start on the bottom. Okay, so here you have 9 different positions here that you can start your machine from, but generally and normally we have it'll start here in the center of the design. Okay. You also have here on this particular list here, you have a connectors tab here, and you have a jump. Okay. Now, basically on a machine, you're going to have a maximum stitch length on a machine. Most of them, or a lot of them, are 12.1. Some of them are 12.7. Okay. And what that means, basically, if you're digitizing a logo design and you go in and you attempt to digitize a satin stitch that's longer than 12.7, okay, your machine is not going to stitch it, actually. And some of you may have noticed this at one point or another, but usually when it gets to that particular area, the machine goes chick, chick, chick. It doesn't do anything, okay? Because if that stitch length has exceeded the maximum stitch length for that machine, it's not going to recognize it. It's actually telling you, hey, you're telling me to do a stitch that's too wide for my programming, and I can't do it, okay? And so make sure, we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into the digitizing part of this. But once I've set all my settings here, I'm going to click save. And this is going to save the design, and is going to save all of my settings to my template folder, okay? And that's very important because the template folder loads everything that you see on your screen, okay? And it will also tell you that this operation will affect all new designs based on the normal template. The normal template is your default template, okay? And so it's going to change this now and affect every new design that I do in my software. So here, I'm going to click OK to make sure that's okay. And then I'm going to click OK here, okay? And what that does, it maintains the design. I'm just going to give you a demonstration here what that does actually. If I go in and begin to start digitizing something, let's say if I digitize this object here on my screen, okay, you see the white crosshair. I'm going to also navigate up top. I'm going to deselect my grid options here. I prefer to have a blank screen. Here, the white crosshair is, of course, the start and stop of the design. It's the center of the hoop. Okay, so it's very important to understand what that's doing there and what it is. Okay, and so watch what happens when I'm going to do a duplication, okay, or a quick copy here of this by right-clicking on it, holding the right mouse button down, and just dragging it here and releasing it like this. So what happens is the white crosshair, it moves, and it has to, because any addition or subtraction that I take from the image, basically making it larger or smaller, okay, it has to take effect with this, and it still has to start and stop in the center of my hoop. So that's what this does. If I do a quick clone on this one, right click and drag it here, it's going to continue to move. And that's what it's supposed to do in order to, when you press start on your machine, that your needle does not jam into the frame. Okay, so that's very, very important. And that's going to be, again, under your design drop menu, and it is the auto starting in. Okay. In this software also, you have the ability to undo 256 times. Okay, and that's great because you could go in, any mistake that you make, and you need to go back, you can just undo it. Okay. Also, when you're bringing your designs in, you want to make sure also, and we talk about this quite a bit in embroidery, because when your customer sends you a job, the most crucial, the most important information that you need to know is what is the finished size of the embroidery. Okay, if you don't know what the finished size of the embroidery is, it handicaps you, because let's say that you've created something with the left chest, and I'm going to go in here just real quick, and I'm just going to I'll do a thin column like this. This is something small satin stitch like this. So basically right now, once I select this here, I'm going to navigate over here also, and I'm going to click, here's your measurement unit system here. You can change from metric here if you click the down arrow to inches. Okay, and so right now, this is about 2.283 inches tall. Okay, and with this size, now after doing the screen calibration also, now one reason for that screen calibration also is for us to actually take a look at the finished embroidery size on the screen. So if I want to go in at this point, if I'm zoomed out in any way, the 0 key right after the 9 key up top gives me a full view of the design. Okay, the number 1 key gives me a one-to-one view of the design. Okay, and when this happens, basically, I can go in, and when I look at the, it's going to be this size here. This is the actual finished size of the embroidery on the garment, is what you see here. Okay, and so the screen calibration is very important for that factor. With this, you have the ability to increase or decrease the size of the images. Okay, as I scroll here to the lower left side of my screen, on the corner here, there's a number here in the prompt above the prompt bar that says 1,198. What that is the stitch count currently for this design. Okay, now you have the ability inside this software to take this image and make it a full back size like this. Now the stitch count is 12,190 stitches. So it regenerates the stitches accordingly, fills everything in. But at this point also, inside this program, when you highlight or you move your cursor over any of the tools here, it's going to give you a little readout here to explaining to you, one, what the shortcut key is to activate this. And for the true view, it tells you that the T is a shortcut key. So if I press T, it gives me a view of the actual stitches here. Okay. Now, what happens here now, and let me do this also. Um, I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to undo it back to the original one. And I'm going to paste the one that I just cut. Okay. And I want to show you something. I want you to look at the stitches on the first one. And as you can see here, these stitches they're in fact, if you look at the view of the stitch lines here, they're solid. Okay. When you see this in your software, basically what this means is you're looking at the original stitch view here. And what it also says to you also is that these stitches here, the speed that you're running your machine at, this tells me that my machine is running here at normal speed here because these are solid lines. Okay, they're small stitches. And this particular stitch type here inside of embroidery is going to be, if it's a very thin satin stitch, we're talking about it's going to generate approximately 50 stitches per centimeter. Okay, and so look at the new one here. This is the jacket back size here. Okay, and with this, basically, we don't see solid lines, do we? We see dotted lines. Okay, and on your machine is now doing these massive jump stitches, going ka-choo, ka-choo, ka-choo from side to side, is what your machine is doing at this time here, basically. And so that's the difference between the solid lines and the dotted lines. Okay, and this can cause major problems, maintenance issues also, if you continue to run stitch lengths here that are this wide on your machine. Okay, and so in other words, in this software, you have the ability to select this, and you have the ability to go in and change the stitch type for this as well. I can go in, I can right click on this, and I can navigate down. I can convert this to different fill types here. I can select this here. And go in. Once I select this here, it gives you the ability to go in and adjust and change the stitch types here inside your program. If I go in up top here, and I'm just showing you this real quick, here's my tatami. I can change it to tatami, and I'm also going to press T for true view to turn it back. I'm going to give you before, and it's satin, too wide satin stitch here. Now tatami stitches. So in this program, you do have the ability to change the stitch type in the files basically as you increase the size of the design. And it's very, very important and a great tool to have in any software, not only to be able to adjust or increase the size of the design, but also have your software automatically regenerate the stitches proportionally to the size that you've actually just created. Very, very important inside of any program. Okay. All right. I'm going to press 0 here for a full view. And I'm going to just press my delete key here and delete key here. Okay. So as you're working inside the software, basically, of course, you have tools and stuff that you'll use pretty much every day. And you'll have tools that you may not use for some time, basically, based on what type of work that you do inside your shop. And everyone does something a bit differently inside their shop. Okay. Now, I want to tell you something also. Once you go in and once you begin to start working inside your software, there's some things and stuff also regarding maintenance that need to be done also. And if you have not done this yet, inside the program, as I navigate to the setup drop menu up top, I'll choose options. And here in the options, what you may have as far as the default here is the software itself. Basically, it backs up your design files every 10 minutes automatically. So even though you're saving those designs to a designated location, the system is backing those files up to a backup folder in your Wilcom folder. Okay, and so that's what this is here, and that's what this represents here. So you're going to have those files and stuff being backed up, and if you're backing them up, basically that means also that they'll need to be emptied at some point, basically. I suggest once a month on the 15th or on the 15th and the 30th to empty the backup files. Okay, because let me share with you what happens basically. If not, what happens is as I click here, and let me mention something here also. If your button sounds when you press your keys on your keyboard are making noises, you can also turn those off by going and clicking play button sounds, or unchecking it here, and that'll take off the sound when you click your mouse button here also. The reason why I have a crosshair cursor on my screen here is because I activated it here. I'm an old schooler. I've been digitizing for 32 years. And so I'm accustomed to the crosshair when I'm digitizing, and it's easy for me to do that actually. It makes me feel more comfortable. Okay, so once it saves the design, uh, I'll show you exactly where it saves it. I'm going to click on my Windows viewer here. I'm going to click on my C drive, of course. On the C drive, I'm going to select the program files x86 folder. It's going to show your programs, and you can have a Willcom folder here also. So I'm going to double click, and you have your Embroidery Studio E4 folder as I double click. The backup files are being stored in this folder here actually. Okay, and if you've had your software for a while and you've never done this before, you may have lots of them in here. And the thing of it is basically is that when you have a ton of these here, at some point they're going to start taking up your hard drive space. Okay, as you go in and use your software, when you go in and you try to do a function inside the software, you may get an error, exception access violation, or something of that nature. And then that means that basically that the backup folders, they need to be emptied out basically. So you need to go in and I'll do a Control A to select and delete. Okay, I'm going to go back. Another folder also that you will need to empty out is your recover folder. Okay, it's going to have your error logs in here basically. And so if the system, if you shut down and don't close out all of your pages, basically, they'll send here, and any error logs that you receive also appear here as well. These also need to be emptied out as well. So I'll press Control A and delete. Okay, I'll go back here. If you go in, just like I did, I changed the template settings, the default template settings in my program. And what that means basically is that it changed them, and it saved all of the template. These are all some of the ones that I created new. And whenever I go in and I create a new template here, it's going to store that template file here inside the template folder. Any Embroidery Studio ESA fonts that you purchase online, they're stored in the user letter folder. Here are all of your fonts. They're labeled .esa. Okay, and these are not the same as someone sending you an alphabet in a DST file. Totally, this has nothing to do with this actually. These are the ESA files, the outline documents here that are required for you to go in and use your Willcom fonts, basically. Okay, and that also means that your Windows fonts that you have in Corel Draw using Windows, they're not our fonts. They're Windows they're Windows fonts actually. Okay, even though you have access and can use some of them, a lot of those fonts basically are not user friendly toward embroidery, especially when you talk about small lettering. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind as well. A good thing to do as well, what I do here, whenever I go in and make any changes, there's some folders in here that I want to back up and have a backup copy of. And I usually save those to my documents folder. Okay. And you want to, especially if you're creating new documents and think if you're creating new templates, the folders that I always make a backup copy of, I'll click on the W letter folder, press my Control key down. I'll click on the user letter template folder. Anything else that you change inside your program, when you go in, and if your thread charts and things like that, you need to go in and you will save your thread charts. Now, if you have thread charts, those are going to be stored here in your res folder. Okay. And if you have thread charts, because in order of where the software, when the software came out, basically, the thread manufacturers may have, may not have, they could have added several colors to their thread charts, basically, that are not in our software because they were created after the software was after the software came out. And so if you need to go in, if the thread chart's not there, you should be able to go to that thread manufacturer's website, and the file that you're looking for, you would just, is it labeled whatever the thread manufacturer is, and it'll be .tch. Okay, that'll be the thread chart extension that you'll need to copy and paste in this res folder here. Okay, and that will, you'll do this, you'll have to restart your software, but this is where you'll go in and place those thread charts. Okay, and so again, that's another folder also that I'll copy and I'll paste it. So I have these. If you add any fabrics to the program, you'll go in and you'll do the fabrics also. Anything that you change here, anything that you create here, I'll right click those and I'll choose copy, and I will go over to documents, and I have a folder called Wilcom Backup. You can name yours whatever you like here, and I'll just go in and I'll just paste those folders, overriding what's already there. And because you want to do this, because if for any reason that you have to uninstall the program, do an update or something like that, it could adjust the it may change the settings here for the folders if you go in and do those things actually. And some of you may have already experienced that. Okay, but you want to make sure that you do a backup somewhere else on your computer, external hard drive, what have you. You want to have a backup of these because you don't want something to happen and you lose access to those, because that means you'll have to go in and recreate those templates and things like that over again. Okay, and so that's very important also. Now, as far as emptying out the backup and recover folders, also there's also a quicker way that you can do it as well. It would be navigating over and clicking on the start button. I'm going to scroll down here and to my Wilcom Embroidery Studio E4. As I click here, there's an option here that's called Purge Recovery. You right click. I've got mine pinned in my taskbar, but you can move it here. You can pin it to your taskbar or move it to the start button. And what that does is this. Here it is here on the bottom of my screen. I'll double click it, and this pops up on my screen here. Purge, recover, and backup directories. Click OK to purge the recovery directory and delete the backup files. And click OK. It'll tell you that they were removed successfully, and click OK. Okay, and that way you can go in and purge those directories basically without having to go in to the folders like I did just now, actually, to have access to those. Okay, very important. Okay, when the customer sends you a design, like I mentioned earlier, the most important thing is knowing what the finish size of the embroidery is, because the finish size of the embroidery tells you what you can and what you cannot do as far as your stitches. Okay, inside the embroidery mode here, for those of you who are new, the stitch types that we'll use mainly will be a running stitch. As I select here, and I'll just do 1 and 2, and I'm going to press enter. And what this does, basically, it does a run stitch. But you know what? Each stitch type that I'm going to talk about today has a stitch count with it, actually. Okay, and so with this particular one here, with the running stitch, it's going to give you a count of 15 stitches per centimeter. Okay, this is just a single. If I do a double, it's going to give me 30 stitches per centimeter. Okay, the next one I'll choose is going to be the column A stitch. This is a satin stitch here. And this one, the way that I put this in here, we'll talk about these more as the series continues here. This is a satin stitch, a small satin stitch like you use mainly for text and things like that. And this is going to generate approximately 50 stitches per centimeter. Okay. You you have wider, right click here, I'm going to do a duplicate here. You have wider stitches here, like this. These are much thicker, okay? These are going to generate approximately 70 to 120 stitches per centimeter, okay? And remember, you also have an additional 20% for your underlays, okay? Very important to remember, okay? And you also have your, what we call a tatami stitch, and this is the stitch type here that's used for large fill areas, okay? Too wide for a regular satin stitch. And that's what this one looks like here, actually. Okay, and this is the one that generates the most stitches, 200 stitches per square centimeter. So which one of these stitch types here is going to hold your machine hostage for the longest? This one, okay? And so what that means also, if you're sending out your designs and you're getting your designs in less than 24 hours and you're being charged by the stitch count, and you're seeing a lot of these stitches here, okay, even on widths that are like this, okay, and they're charging you by the stitches, what do you think is happening? Okay, and not all digitizers do this, but a lot of them do. And if you're being hit with a lot of these stitch types in your design, jacking the stitch count up, they're charging you more for your embroidery files, okay, and it's going to cost you in the end. It'll cost you in the long run. You may say, well, and I'm not referring to the ones that do a great job. I'm referring to the ones that don't. And so if you're paying cheaply for that job, you get what you pay for. I'll just leave it like that. Okay. Because if you pay $10 for something that someone charges $40 for, you're not getting the same design. You're not getting the same quality design. Okay. And everything that goes out of your shop has your name on it. Okay. So, and I'm telling you this because I want you to just to keep this in mind, and and just be mindful of the type of designs you get. And when you send out a job and you get it back, it should be tested. Okay. And when you run your samples, and I know that we're all doing this, when you run your samples, you never run your samples on backing, because everything looks good on backing. Okay. If you're running your samples on backing and then you go into production, once you press start on that machine and you're getting a totally different stitch out, you wonder why you're getting a total stitch out? You're running it on two different garments, basically. If you're going to run something on PK knit fabric in production, you would definitely want to run that sample on PK knit, okay? Because you do everything possible before you get to the machine so that you don't have any hiccups on the machine, basically. If you don't have a scrap box for your fabric type, start making one, because you don't want to run the sample. Lots of digitizers, they'll sample something out on backing because they know everything looks good on backing, and it's not going to run the same way if you're stitching that same thing on fleecy material. Okay, and that's very, very important. And again, these are things that will improve your downtime in production, because once you get that design in, if in fact you run a sample on it, basically, if there's anything that needs to be adjusted for that design, you can send it back for adjustments with it, basically. But you should not have to spend 15, 30 minutes editing a design that a so-called experienced digitizer sold you. It's just not fair. Okay. When the digitizer does the design for you, that design, the digitizer controls pretty much everything. Okay. And all you should have to do is run your sample to make sure that it's running correctly and start your production run. And that production run should be one with as less trims, um, less jumps, color changes as possible, by keeping the needle on the fabric for as long as possible. If you're not getting that, you are getting ripped off. Okay. And it's not fair. So I'm giving you the information so that at least you'll have it, and so that you'll be ready. So even if you're not doing any digitizing at all, you'll know what to expect. Okay. Okay. We have our design here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go in and I'm going to select these here and I'm going to delete these. Okay. Now, when you save your designs, it's crucial. Whenever I'm working, okay, um, I make it a point here to have my object properties up here and my color object list so that I can see what's going on. Okay. Now, you have two little thumbtacks here, just on the right side, on the left side here of the X, and I can hide these by doing this. And if I want to bring it back on the screen, if I select it, now the little thumbtack is pointing at 9 o'clock. I want to lock it on the screen so it doesn't move, so I'll click it. Now it's pointing at 6 o'clock. So this is what I want to see here on my screen. It is a bit difficult if you have a very small screen because we have lots of tools here. And so the smaller the screen is, the less your visual is when you're working inside the program. Okay, so these two here are constantly on my screen because this is going to allow me to see the actual objects on the screen here. And this is what we call a vector object here, actually. Okay, the vector object will have multiple items, just like a regular stitch file, because you're working in layers here with the colors, basically. And that's what you have here. You can hide or show this by either clicking this tool here and clicking again, or you can press the Shift D, does the same thing. This one is going to hide and show your bitmap images. We don't have any here on the screen right now, but you will select this or press the B as in boy. I'm sorry, D as in dog. Okay, and so so having said that, I'm going to also go in, and these tools here basically that you have on the screen here, you can grab these and extend these by moving your cursor to the left side of these here and seeing your 4-pointed arrows. Then you left click and just hold it down and just drag it if you need to move it out or bring it back like this. If you see something that looks like this, that means that the toolbars have been cut short here and you can't see them all. In order to see them all now, I have to click on the little arrow here. And me, I don't like that. And so I'll move this so that I can see the entire toolbar because it's important for me to be able to view what I'm working with on my screen actually. Okay. Whenever you go in and make any changes like this, when you make any adjustments and things like that, and you go in, you will click the Save tab here on the bottom here of your properties. Okay. And once you click that here, like right now, let me X out of this. If I need to go in and change the density setting here for my tatami stitches, okay, and I want to do a default, I'll go in, make this 38, and I'll make this one 3.8, 3.8, and I want to save this. Not finished yet though. On the offsets here of my tatami stitches, I want this one to be 66 for the offset, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through the series about the offsets. And this one is 67, and I'm going to save this. Once I save that, it's going to indicate for me, do I want to save this to my default template? Yes, that's my normal template. I'll click OK, and again, it'll tell me that this operation will affect anything new that I do here. And so I've changed that basically, okay? And this is also the importance of going in and copying the template folder inside the Wilcon folder and doing a duplicate copy of it so you'll have that information so that you don't lose it, okay? And that's our responsibility, okay? All right, inside the program as well, I'm going to navigate here to my file drop menu. Here, you have options here also, and what you'll be doing, you'll be saving designs. You'll be doing a save as. Whenever you work inside the software, every software has its own proprietary file extension. Ours is called an EMB file. That EMB file is comprised of all of the settings, underlays, cover stitches, density settings, pull compensation, column width. It has all of these particular features in one design. Okay, outlines again allows us to take the left chest design, increase it to a full back. okay, and make the necessary changes basically to adhere to the new change to the new sizes basically based on the stitch length and things like that. Okay, very important. Now, when you are inside the program and you are opening up DST files, okay, machine stitch data files is what they're called. Now, in the E3 and prior, the thing was to go into File and choose Save As. Well, here and now, if you go in and you choose that and you go to Type, all you're seeing here are EMB files, okay, extensions here basically. Now, if you're working with someone and you're digitizing for them, and they have a version below yours, like 1.5 or E3, you will have to save that down to that version that they have in order for them to read that EMB file. If you save it to the 4.0 and they're running 3.5, they're not going to be able to open that file up. Okay. All right. And so now, in order for us to go in and to bring in files that are DST, now we go in, we go to File, and we choose here. Basically, when we go in, if I click here for export here, and kind of getting ahead of myself, this to export this file now, we don't choose Save As anymore. Once we choose Export Machine File, and then we go to our Save As type, we click our down arrow, and here are all of our machine files here, stitch data files that we can save to, and we just go in for this one here. Let's say, for instance, if I go in and if I'm going to open up a DST file here, and I'm just going to just go to my desktop. For a DST file, do we have any here? Now, it used to be that we had to double click on the DST file to open it up inside the program. It is not the case anymore, because what they've done, they've added an additional some options for us basically, and it was a software development adjustment is what it was basically. Now when you go in, now you just click on the DST file once just to select it, and you're going to have to navigate down here now to options. Okay, now and with these, let me see here. We'll choose our DST file, and we'll go in. Once we get that file here, we'll just go in and we'll just save that to the, let's save it to the desktop, whatever the file name is, Go, what have you. Now, right now, let me hold on for a second here. Let me clicking my buttons too fast. Now, when I go in, now in order to save something to your hard drive, you have to have the file on the screen here. So let me go in and let me just add one for you here. I'll just grab this one. Now, when I open this file up on my screen, I'm going to save it as a DST file. And all right, so here, if I go in, so now if I, this one, if I go in here now, if I want to save this as a DST, I go to File and I choose Export Machine File. I give it a name, whatever the file extension that I'm using here for that particular file, and I'll just save it. So you're exporting the machine file now, not doing a save as like we did before. I'm gonna here up top here also you have your designs that you can close them out here much faster. You have much faster access to them here also. That you can click here and you can delete them. So now if I go to my new page here, so now if I'm going to import that design in, we have to do it differently now. Okay, if I go to File and I open that file up, basically now I have my machine files here, and I'll choose DST. Okay, now when I go to my desktop here, I'm going to scroll down. So there's my file. So now, guys, you can't just double click on this anymore, because if you double click on it, it's going to give you, well, let me show you here in a minute, but this is what you should do. Okay, now when you're going in, you're importing your DST files or any of your machine files, you will go in, you will click it once to select it, and you'll go to your options. Okay, once you click on your options, you want to make sure, it is imperative that these two boxes here on your lower left corner here are selected. Okay, because you want to be able to see on your screen, you want to be able to see your objects in your outlines. Okay, because those are the things that you're able to go in and edit with that file, and make sure that your connectors are on also. So these two should be selected. As I click OK, now I can open the file up. And this is the new way. Again, it's a developmental adjustment in the program, developmental enhancement inside the software that allows you to go in and open up your DST files. And now we have 4 different grades of the designs now also. Up top here you have a tool, and it's design properties, or you can type in Alt P. Once I click here, it's going to show me the design. And here's where you can actually go in and type in a title and things like that to appear on your printouts. But look what happens when I press my design tab. Now it gives me more information about the design. Okay. And if you look down here, we have an EMB grade now is what we have. And this is the software enhancement. This is a grade of C. Okay. And so now if you're bringing in regular DST files, that grade on this should be a C. Okay. Of course, the EMB file is going to be an A. Any files like your XXX files, any condensed files, they're going to be a grade of B. Okay. And the worst file, the one that you don't want to bring in, is what I'm about to show you next. I'm going to close this out. Well, let me do this for you also. So I'll bring this back. I want you to look at my color object list. As it's coming back up again, if you look at my color object list, you see these objects here listed. And so by turning on the outlines and offsets, the outlines, you'll be able to go in and edit these objects here on the screen. Okay, you can select them and you can edit them. This here basically is normally going to be a tie off or tie-in stitch. It's a manual stitch. We'll talk about that more in detail later. But you can't make any adjustments to the manual stitches. Okay, but I can go in and I can make adjustments here to the other stitch types that you see here, and we'll get more into that a little bit later also. So this is what you want to see in your color object list when you open up your DST files. Okay, this is what you don't want to see. If I go to File and I choose Open, at my desktop, and I choose this. Now, if this is not checked, and I go in and I open this file up now, I want you to take a look at that color object list now and look at what you see here. They're all manual stitches. This is what you don't want to see when you bring in your DST files. Okay, I can't edit it. If I change the size of it, basically the stitch count will change minimally. Okay, and so if I go to my information here on my design, and under design now, this is a grade D. This is the worst here. So that's what you don't want to see when you're going in. And you'll know, even if without your color object list open, because if you go in and try to edit anything, let me show you what the what the node points look like on this, on the reshape. They look like this. Whenever you see this, these are all manual stitches, and it's not good because that means that you can't edit it. Okay, it's every single stitch in the design, and if you've witnessed this, this is why. This is what you're looking at here actually, and these things are extremely important to recognize because you want to be able to go in and edit your documents basically. So when you bring something in, this is what you don't want to see. Okay, very, very important, especially for those of you who have come up from an earlier release of software. So this is what it looks like to see all manual stitches. Okay, wait for it here. So if you had questions about this in particular, hope that this answered those type questions for you. Almost done. And you can also see the time that it takes to go in and generate the stitches for this also. It'll massively slow down your production. At this point here, let's see here. It's still running it here. So at this point here, if you've seen this happen, and you have your spinning cursor here on the screen, if you were to left click your mouse button now, your screen is going to have a hazel view to it actually, and you're going to have to probably restart. So this, again, very important to see here. Let me try something here. I'll try Control Alt Delete. And see if I can cancel it. And this is what happened. Okay. Now, when this does happen to you, if it does happen, basically, you can wait for the program to finish running, basically, or you can close the program down. Now, and I'll show you exactly what happens as far as having the recover folders and the backup folders and things. Like here, if I click the close the program down, it's going to shut down. Okay, the CorelDRAW is still open. I'll just go back. I'm going to double click here on my Wilcom icon. Now, I want you to watch what happens when the program comes back up again, because I should have something pop up on my screen that says something about the recover files that were on my screen, basically, that I was working with, and I did not close those out, basically what you're going to see here. So as we go in this and through this, and this is very important because if it has not happened to you yet, if you bring something in, that particular design and all of those manual stitches, it just either wait for it to finish, or you can just do what I just did just now, actually. And when it comes back up again, I'll show you exactly what to do when it opens your page back up again. It's good to teach about the software and to teach about everything it does. At the same time, when you're working inside the software also, it's good also to be able to go in and fix things if need be. Oops, let's see here. There. Here we go. As you're working with the program, and as you're each day that you go in. You should feel more comfortable each day, but it's very important that you go in and you work with the software every day. Um, uh, I guess it's okay to be scared sometimes or afraid to do certain things. It's okay, but I suggest that you can't blow it up or anything like that. You could always call us for support, and but as you go in and work with the program, you will get better with it every day. Um, we do have our online training classes that we do, like this one that you see here, that we do consistently. We also have on-site training that we do as well in Atlanta, Ohio, and California that we do monthly as well. Also, if you want to come for training in that particular way as well. Here, so coming back up, basically, this is what you're going to see. It's going to say, it's going to ask you, do you want to load from the recovery files automatically? Delete them when closing the software. Don't load, leave the recovery files where they are. You don't ask me again. You can delete those recovery files without opening them, okay? Or you can report an issue. I'm going to click load. Here, there. I'm going to open this up again. Here, and slide this over there. And now on the open recent, it's only going to have the last files that I had on my screen here. So here, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to choose open. And I'll go in and I'll sort these by folder. And as I go in, I'm going to locate here my designs. Oops. Whenever you go in and you're trying to open up a file, if you don't see anything on the screen here, just go to where you said file name here, and you'll scroll up and you'll choose all files. Okay. Let's see here. Let's do this. I'm going to click here, my Corel. I'll go back here. I'll select this again. Right click. I'll copy this. I'll go back here to my Embroidery Studio software and I will paste it here also. Okay, so there goes my file. Now, once we get the design where we want it on the screen, basically at this particular point here, we're going to size this to the finished size that it's going to be in production. And at this point here, let's say we're going to make this currently, once I select it, it's going to give me a size here in my width and height boxes here. And we're going to make this, let's say 3 inches. Okay, so you see the difference here also between the 3 inches here and the 7 inches. Okay, and so if I press my number 1 key at 7 inches here, and this is what it's going to look like here at 3 inches. So right now, with my design on the screen, I can go in and I can begin to look at how I want to process this design. Now, inside the software, you do have some automatic features inside the software that will allow you to go in and stitch things instantly on the screen. Okay, and that's going to be with this tool here. You have auto digitizing tools here inside the embroidery mode. And so if I want to fill these in here, I have options here in order to fill those in. One of those would be to go in and do an instant smart design tool. When I select this one and I click it here, it goes in and it generates the stitches like this. Okay, again, I'm going to undo this. When I select this here and I want to stitch them automatically, I have my instant smart design tool and it does just like this. Now, once you go in and once you do an automatic fill like you just saw just now, it's important to understand as well that once you click that automatic button, basically, the system is on autopilot. Okay, and so once that's done, you're not finished yet. Okay, all this does basically is just it generates the stitches for you, based on the size of the objects, basically, because on the fill areas that are large, it's going to do a tatami stitch. Anything that's narrow and small like this, of course, it's going to do a satin stitch. Okay, so it goes in and it stitches something like this out. But you have areas like this, and it just depends on your what you feel is um, a good design, good quality or not. But you have objects like this on the screen, and this on the screen also. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go up top here. I'm going to change my measurement system here as I left click and take this back to metrics here. I want to see how, one, wide these columns here are. I'm going to press M as in Mary. The M key starts the measurement tool, and I'm going to measure from here to here. That distance is 6.52. Okay, if you want to know what a stitch width is that's unacceptable for this size here, that would be, let's say I'll click on my running stitch here, and I'll change my color here also. I'm just going to draw a border around this like this, and here I'm going to press enter. So if I take this and I make this, I'm going to press H for my reshape tool, and I'm going to draw a box around these two. I'm going to extend this outward like this. Okay, now this particular width here, if I press M and I measure, that is a pretty long stitch here, guys. Okay, I could probably go up to maybe 9, even some instances 10, but I wouldn't want to go above that. In inches, we're looking at this. I'm going to navigate here, press inches. I'm going to press M. In inches, once you get to beyond 0.39, that is a very long stitch. And at that particular point there is when I have to determine either am I going to use what we call the auto split stitch. Okay. If I select the object here, I'm going to navigate over here to my object properties, and under your fills is where you do your density settings here. And it also is where the auto split stitch is. This is what happens to the auto split stitch once I click it. Any stitch that's over 7 millimeters, normally it looks like this. I'll make this half. I'll do 3.5. It looks like this. Okay, and it does this in order for it to prevent your machine from doing long jump stitches. Okay, but the default of that is at 7 millimeters like this. As you can see here also, look at the way that the software generated the stitches here. Okay, quality wise, this is unacceptable. Okay, because for something like this, the P actually, the stitches here also, let me measure these. If I measure these here, they're like 8, but it's just the appearance of them will not be very nice once your customer sees them. Okay, so I suggest, or what I would do for something like this is I would go in, I'm going to use, I'll use the column A stitch, and I'll use the red. So the way that this P actually should be digitized, and we are going to get more and more into this also, is I have to go in, I'll start here at the bottom, and because I'm using the column A stitch here, I'll need to do a side A and a side B. Now also, I'll do a side A here and a side B here, and I might do extra one here on the corner and press enter. Now, I'm also going to select this here, and I'm going to make sure that it's a tatami stitch, satin stitch like this. So now I've gone in, and so generally, the way that you would digitize this is pretty much the way that you would write it actually. So now, once I've done that, now I can go in and I can begin digitizing this way. I'll go in here like this, points and counterpoints. If you right click your mouse button, it does a curve. So right click, right click, right click for a curve. And the curves are created so that you won't have to put so many node points in on these particular sections here. So I'll stop here and there and press enter. Okay, and again, assuming you want to make sure that the satin stitch is selected here. So this is what this piece should look like, okay, versus what you saw before here. And I'm going to move this over here to the left to let you see, because once it's stitched out basically here, this is going to look a lot nicer on the fabric in this particular way here actually. Okay, and so when you do the auto conversion inside the software, and in this series, we'll go over the aspects basically of what to do on the auto conversion. And just keep in mind, once you do it, does not mean that you're finished. Okay. As a matter of fact, you're just starting after the conversion, because now you have to prepare that design for production. Okay. And so for things like this, just keep in mind that when we're working on items like this from the conversion, depends on what you think basically about what that should look like. The S did pretty good. Okay. And the D also, for the D, I'm not liking the D either. Okay. And so for the D, I can go in basically and choose to digitize this. Again, normally you would actually digitize this the way that you would write it. Okay. So with the D, if I went across the top here on the P, I should be able to do that same thing on the bottom. Okay. And at this point here, if I click on, I'm going to right click this and I'm going to just a little bit smaller. So I'll delete here. I'm going to go in. And so now looking at this here, we're going to go in and we're going to do this with it. I can start here. I go here and I can go here to finish that off, and making sure here that the satin stitch is selected here also. Let's see, make sure that I got this one and satin. And when I finish this off here, I can start here just like this. And this is just one way to do this, guys. I mean, if you give the design to several digitizers, they may digitize it differently. Actually, the one thing that's most important and crucial is that the end result is that it runs smoothly on the sewing machine in a timely manner. You have this like this. Okay. And this, again, as I go in and look at these and move these up, this, as far as appearance, is going to have a much nicer appearance here with this. Now, also for my circle. Now, with the circle design, basically you have the options here that are, it looks as though that the conversion was trying to stitch it out different directions, different objects using one stitch angle. And it's almost impossible to do that correctly. Okay. And so now with everything else, I can go in, because this, again, is unpresentable, okay, to the customer. Okay. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to measure, press M. The width of the column here is 3.1, or I can use maybe 3 millimeters. Now, what I can do here with this is I can navigate over. Here's my column C stitch here. I can right click on it. It's going to bring up the properties here, you see. And here, the measurement is already 3 millimeters wide. And so I can go with that. Now, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in. I'm going to select my ellipse tool here, which is a vector object. Okay. And with that vector object, I can go in and I can, making sure that I have my tools on screen that I need here. Okay. And so right now, I'm going to press escape. I'm going to navigate. Whenever there's a tool bar that's not on my screen, I'm going to go to an open space and right click and make sure that my necessary tools are shape tools, If your mirror merge tool is very important here also. And so just want to make sure that I've got the right tools on the screen here that I could work from here. So now when I go in, let's see, I'll click here. I'll start from the center. I'm going to left click this, press my control key out. I'm holding my control key down here, and I'm going to left click. To make a perfect circle, I'll press enter, and it does this. Okay, and so now all I've got to do here now is go in and slide this over to kind of line this up with the design, and here. Okay, now the rest of these here are smaller columns actually from the outside border actually. So in this particular instance, at this point here, I can still use the outline here to go in and do my circle on the inside. And it's just as simple as doing this. I'm going to select it. I'm going to press Control D. Put on here. Make sure that I grab the right thing. That's the reason why it's imperative to keep your color object list open so that you can select the right thing here. Control D. It made a duplicate of it here, as you can see in my color object list. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab a corner and do this with it. I'm going to slide it in, and I'm going to make it smaller like this. Now, with this, again, when I go in, I'll grab it and do here. I'm going to pull this out, making sure it's circular. I'll grab a corner and press Shift and move this out like this. Now, and this is fine, guys, because now all I got to do is measure the inside. I go 1, 2, 3.0. I right click on this one, and I have my object properties here, and I can type in 3.0 and press enter like this. So it's just that easy and simple that you can actually go in and even, let's say, I can go down with it if I want to also, like that. Okay, and so at this point here, I'm going in, I'm actually creating this. Okay, and as far as the order is concerned, I'm creating this out of order actually, because usually, and I'm working from a design that's already been stitched out by the converter. Okay, and so with that, I can go in also, and with the column C stitch, all I got to do now is go in and click here, right click here for a curve, here, here, and there. I'm going to press enter once. It wants to know how wide it is. If I press enter, it'll just use the default. Okay. Same thing here. Now, this is close to the S here. So when you're creating the designs, because of the embroidery aspect of it, basically, with the graphics, you can make things this close, but in embroidery, it's like night and day. So for this, I would take this over. I can still go straight down the middle for this as I'm creating this object here. I press enter, but if I click on my select tool, I can move this up here to add some space so that S can breathe. Okay, and so you'll have to go in and do things like this sometimes in order to make things work inside the program. Now I can also click this and right click on this, and with my tools up top here, I can rotate this in 15-degree increments like this, turn it around, and I can undo it if it's too much. Click here and rotate it. If I can't get it right using this tool, if you click the object once, you'll get the black node points. If you click it twice, you get hollow node points, and these let you go in and rotate it like this, just like this, as you're going in. And to adjust the spacing here, I'll press H for my reshape tool. I'll grab the node point here and I'll slide it in like this. And the important thing here in this aspect here is making sure all of your objects are in place. Okay. We have the same thing here. If I go here and use my tool here like this, I go here and press enter twice. That's what it looks like. If I need to add some space here because of the size, remember when I press the number 1 key, it's going to give me that in one-to-one on my screen like this. Okay. If I need to move this, you do have the capability of just selecting and just sliding it over a little bit like this. All you're doing is you're creating some space here so that you can see, so that you can actually see the spaces there actually, that you can see some white fill. Okay. Here also, I can click on the column C stitch, navigate 1, 2, 3, and press enter 2 times to fill that. And so now I've actually gone in, and also I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to choose Save As, and I'll go to my folder options here as I go in, and I'll save my design. Let's see here. Here, and I'll name this one. I think it's a DPS. And I'm going to save this as the EMB. Save. Okay, so now, so the areas here that I've gone in and made the adjustments with here, and for this one here, we're gonna sure that's the same. So as we go in and do this, guys, now I made some adjustments with this. We can use the S here for this. Okay, and notice here also that when I select the S, it also selects more than one object here on my screen. So what happens is when you're doing the conversion, the software, its goal is to allow, if objects are close together, they're going to try to connect them by not doing a trim. And that's what you see here. And you'll see something that looks like this. Okay. And this is lets you know actually that the branching tool was used for this. Okay. And the branching tool is going to be in the designing package, and it allows you to go in and digitize multiple objects with multiple stitch starting and exit points. And it allows you to combine those components into one. Okay. And so that's what that does actually. So right now, with this particular design here, as I'm looking at this, I'm not going to use this because we're going to use our own because we digitize them separately here. Okay. But for the S, in order for me to use this S, I'm going to have to break this apart. I can do it here in my color object list by right clicking and choosing break apart. And you see how many objects were associated with that one. Okay. And so I just need the S, and I'm just going to change the color on the S like this. Okay. So we can use that. And now for the fill in the background, you saw it broke everything up like this. And in embroidery, it's a bit much actually, because you want to, because the size of it is small enough that you can actually fill the background in completely. And that's what you want to do for this. And so the way that I would do it here quickly is just, I would just click on the outline. The outline, it shows you that I've selected the outline here. I'm going to press Control D to duplicate it. Okay. I'm also going to change the color of it here. Okay. And all I'm going to do at this point here is I'm going to click on, if I click on the Tommy stitch here up top, it'll fill it in for me. Okay. I'm going to press H for my reshape tool based on my stitch angle here, and I'm going to do 45-degree angle. 45-degree angle is safe. So I use a starting position here, which is your green diamond, and my exit point for my red light here. Okay. What happens sometimes when the exit point's in the wrong location? This is what happens. Watch what happens when I move the exit point here. Ever seen that line in the fill like there? The reason for that is because the exit point is in the center of the fill. To try to avoid that, you want to place it to the polar opposite end of it to get rid of that that line inside the fill. And now for this, guys, I've gone in and I've made all of my adjustments here. And so at this particular point here, when I go in, I need to reorder those blocks to where everything is stitching in the order that I want it to stitch in. Okay. And that's why the tool here for the sequence is so crucial inside your program. So I want to go in now and I'm going to position everything to where I want it to stitch in the correct order. Okay. And so here are my circles here. I can see that I've used the column C stitch here. That's what's displaying here for my object type. And so I'm going to go in. I'm going to branch this. And there's a way also that you can also do this if you're running the with the other program. And so right now, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking here, as I look at these here, I'm trying to decide what's going to stitch first. With the decorating, I would need to go in. I could actually put these in order that I want them to stitch with the decorating program. Here, I'm going to do this first with the branching tool. And so with these, I'm going to select, I'm just going to press my control key down. Okay. And that's allowing me to select all those objects now. And so with my branching tool, I'm going to click branching, or I can right click on them here and choose branching. And watch what happens here when I go in. The system will ask me for entry point because it wants to know where I want to start stitching. I can say I want to start stitching here. And it wants to know also where I want to exit. And I can say I want to exit here on the outline. You see what happens here? Now it's combined those objects into one. Okay. And so now when I go in and I do my arrangement here, I want the green to stitch first. And this is how I'm going to set it up. As I left click here, I'm going to press my control key down. What I want to stitch next. Next, I want to go in, I want to stitch the red here. Okay. And next I want to go in and I want to stitch the S. Okay. Then the P, 1, 2, and then the D. Now, the way that this works is like this. I'm going to navigate up top here. I'm just going to click on 1, 2, 3. Watch my color object list. It goes in. It reorders all my blocks. Okay. And this feature is available in both decorating and designing. Excellent feature inside the software. So now everything else, I don't need it all. And so at this particular point here, I'm going to navigate up top here. I'm going to click this also. Okay. And I'm going to hide those by right clicking, and I'm going to hide those objects to where I only got what was originally done. I'm going to select these and I'm going to delete these. Okay. I'm going to right click on these again now, and I'm going to unhide all. Okay. All I've got to do here is go in now and grab the P and place it in position here, and the D and place it in position here. And that's all I have to do for those. And the background here is going to be white, and this color here is going to be black. Okay. And I'm going to click save here. Once I can just click my, now I'm going to hide the vectors on the screen here. I'm going to press the, make sure that this is centered. My position 0 and position 0 here. Now I'm going to run the stitch player on this. Okay. And with the stitch player, it goes like this. I want to see how this is going to run on my machine. Here's your stitch player tool. I'm going to click it here. Now, once you go in and you're running your stitch player here, so now what do you notice about this actually? It's not stitching any underlay stitches. So I'm going to stop it right here. Okay, so now I elected not to choose the Auto Fabric Assistant with this. You can go here, your fabric types, and you'll just click here if you want to use it, and you'll just scroll down to the fabric type that you have basically inside your program. If you're going to stitch it on a cap material, I would just use denim because the weave on those are pretty much the same. And so you can click on the fabric here basically, and it will automatically put in the necessary underlay stitches for your objects. Okay, if you want to choose that feature inside the software, which is very valuable. Right now, I want to go in and I want to click on the background here for my tatami stitch, and in my properties on my underlays, I want to do a tatami underlay stitch here first, and then an edge run. And that's pretty much the norm that I'll be doing for the tatami stitches here. And I'm going to save this to my default for my tatami stitching. I'm going to override it here like this. Okay. And then I've got everything else here as I go in. And everything else here, I want to use a center run stitch. Okay. For the letters here, they are thick enough that I'll select here. And I can use an edge run and perhaps a center run stitch for those. Okay, and I'm going to save these. You also have small stitch filter also that it removes the small stitches from the design once you export it out to the machine format. The default's at 3/10 of a millimeter. So it'll go in, it'll take away all of the stitches inside the design that are less than 3/10 of a millimeter. Okay, very, very nice tool. Here, as I click on my stitch player again, let's watch it run this time. And this time as it goes in, it's running my underlays. And you want to run this every time before you save to your machine. Before you save the design out to a flash stick or send it to the machine, you want to run this because this is going to show you exactly how the design is going to stitch on the machine. And right here, right now, it's doing something that that I'm going to have to change, and that's the way that it's stitching here because the exit point has moved. Okay, and that's with the auto or the closest join feature inside the software. So I'm going to stop this right now. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to press H. Here's my stitch angle, and I'm going to move that exit point there, and I'm going to save this. And now we're going to run it again. Everything should be correct once you run this stitch player, okay? Because it's going to show you again exactly how the design is going to run on your machine. You can speed it up here with your little tab. And we'll watch what it does to everything else. As it goes in, automatically, as it goes in, and it's running everything else. And then it does the lettering on the inside like this. Okay, and so that's how it's going to run this. And you could always go back and, you know, if you can move the exit points here, like for me, if I want to move the starting point here and the exit point here on the outside, that's just going to change it and have the outline run by itself independently. Okay, like this. As I choose stitch player, and watch how it stitches this time. It goes in. And you can control this, and you can basically tell it basically where you want to start and exit with it. And you could choose, you know, how you want to stitch this basically in that particular fashion. Guys, that's going to do it for this class today. Actually, I know you have some questions for me, and I'm ready to take any questions now. And I can see that I have some. Let's see here. Oh, Sharon has a question about the wide columns. Um, you can, if the column is really wide, you can go in and you can make two columns, but it just depends on the digitizer to see, how they're going to go in and do it actually, or they may choose to use a tatami stitch for it. So you can do this, and it's not wrong to do that actually. It's just a way of doing it, and that's just perfectly fine. And Brenda has a question also. Can you bring almost all pictures into Corel and make it a vector image? Um, um, you can, Brenda, but it depends on if you're bringing in anything. If the artwork is bad, if it's a photograph, it's not going to work. More than likely, it's not going to work because when you think of the embroidery and you think of graphics, actually, you know. Any type of image that you're going to have like a lot of colors in it, it's not going to work because with the embroidery we're using thread. Okay, and so because we're using thread with it, if so it'll definitely convert it, it'll definitely take it in and it will convert it. But just like you saw a few minutes ago when I did the automatic conversion with the graphic here, and sometimes it works perfectly fine, but it just depends on what type of quality you're generating from your shop actually. Okay, and it'll also stitch it, but it doesn't mean that the stitch out will be production ready. It may require some more modifications of it. But you can definitely bring them in, but just know that it's utterly impossible for you to bring in a photograph and have it stitch out in production the way that it should stitch out actually. Okay, and same thing for any type of um, designs, especially if they're coming from the web, because the uh, resolution from the web is like 72, and the lower that number, the worse the resolution is for a conversion process. And we'll talk about that a bit more in our next session too, as far as bringing in types of file types and doing the conversion, what works and what doesn't work, and what needs to be done to continue to prepare that design for production. Great question. Deborah has a question. Can I please do that again? Um, the EMB, the fill, how to make how to make the EMB file for sewing. Right now, with this design, I'm done with the design, and generally I'll go in and I'll take the artwork and I will just delete the artwork, and now I'm ready to save this out as a DST format. So at this point here now, I'll go to File, and I'll choose Export Machine File, and I'll take that as a DST. As I go here on my Save as Type, I'll scan to find my machine type here, which is, let's say, DST file. And I have my design name there actually, and I'll just choose Save. Okay, and now that file is saved as a machine stitch file now. It's no longer an EMB file. It is a machine file now. Okay, and that means that you have limitations now with that file. As you can see here, if I look at my list here, take a look at how these objects look inside my color object list here. Okay, now watch what happens. Now I'm going to save this again. I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to open up the DST file. Here it is here. I'm going to turn on my stitches here. Now look at my color object list. And remember what this is? Okay. If I do my design, if I go to design here, it tells me that the EMB grade is a D, which is the worst, which means that I can't edit this because they're all manual stitches. Okay. And watch what happens here when I click it and I try to go to my reshape tool on this. That's what the outline looks like now. Okay, that's not what I want. So I'm going to close this out. I don't want to change. And I'll go to page here. So now I'm going to open this up through File and Open. And as I go in here, I'm going to click on the bottom here, and I'll choose my DST. There it is. This time I'll click it once. I'll scroll down to my Options tab here. Make sure that my objects and outlines are selected, and I'm going to click OK. Now it's okay for me to open the file up. And when that comes up on my screen here, you can look at my color object list. It looks different, totally different than what you saw before. And now I have editable objects now. So when I click on my outline here, I can at least go to my reshape tool, and it's an actual object now, not pure stitches. And that separates, again, the EMB file from everything else. But look here also, because this is a DST file, it also separates the underlay stitches and everything too. Okay, and this is what the machine file looks like after you save it to a DST. And that's why the EMB file is so crucial for you to save that file and make backup copies of it, because that's the one that you want to edit if you have to edit anything. Those are much easier to edit than these here, actually. Great question. Next question. Marcia has a question. Could you show again where to make those changes in the document folder? Okay. And are you referring to the saving the files from the Wilcom folder, Marcia? Okay, great. So you're going to go here actually. Any changes that I made, I'm going to click here on the bottom to my Windows File Explorer here. I'm going to go in, I'm going to click on the local disk C. I'll choose my program files x86 as I double click, and I'm going to scroll down here and I'll select my Wilcom folder. And here you click on your Embroidery Studio E4.0 folder here. And so I've made some more changes to my template. Okay, so I'm going to select template here. That's the only folder that I made any changes to this time. But I'm also going to go res here again also. Now I'll right click. You know what? Let's do the rest of them. Right click, and I'm going to choose copy, or I can choose send to the documents, but I'll choose copy, and I'll go to my documents folder here. As I double click, I will locate my Wilcom folder for my Wilcom backup here. As I double click it, I'll right click and I'll choose paste, and it will go in and save those files. And it says that I have the number of files here. Replace the files in the destination or skip these. I want to place them there. So they've been saved now, and I've got them backed up. So if I have to go in at any point here to reinstall my software, I've got my backup files. All I've got to do is copy those files back into my Wilcom folder. Great question. Let's see here. All right. Next question. Richard has a question. Would this be the case if bringing a DST file not digitized be Wilcom Embroidery Studio? No, because if it's an EMB file, Richard, if I'm hearing you correctly or understanding you correctly, if it's an EMB file, it's perfectly fine. When I go to File here and I choose Open, and I have the ability here, I'll go in, I'll choose all files. And here, as the EMB files, I can double click these and bring them in, because those are going to be fine because they're grade A. And also any condensed files or from CompuCon, the XXX files from CompuCon, they will read in as a second grade outline file. Okay, and because of that, it'll be okay, and you can edit those because everything is still the same. Okay, and that's what makes the difference between those two. Great question, Richard. Nancy has a question. How do we get the same design? when you say same design, Nancy, what are you referring to? The same design? Nancy, you there? As far as loading in the EMB file. Okay, I'm waiting on okay, waiting an answer from Nancy here. Brenda has a question also. Are you am I losing network connection, or am I? I'm not sure. Not sure, Brenda. Okay, no worries. Okay, next question is from Jenny. My toolbar does not show all of those options. Even define digitizing tools of those. Um, how do you set this to be able? Now, if you have these options inside your program, if you're running the designing program, some of these they come standard with the designing. And if you're running the decorating, all of them they may not be available to you. But whenever you want to go in, Jenny, and if you see something that's not on your screen that you want to see on the screen, just go into an open space and right click your mouse button. And whatever does not have a check by it here is hidden on the screen. Okay. And so you would go further down. You have your further options here that you can actually go in and turn these on by just clicking on it actually, and it'll put a check to the left of it. And that's how you'll actually go in and turn those items on inside your program. And then if you want them to lock there, so that when you open up your software again, of course you'll go to File, and you'll choose Save as a Template. Okay, at this point. Okay, and if you're going to save it as a template, it's best to do this without a design on the screen, because if you save it as a template at this point here, it's going to save the design on the screen also, and you don't want to see the design on the screen every time you bring it up. So if you're going to go in and make those changes, I would do it with a blank screen and just go in and right click here and turn the icons on, and then do the save as a template that way, so that when you bring it up, it does not bring up the design also. Deborah has a question. I missed the class last night. Deborah, just send me your email address, Deborah, and I'll send you the link to the class last night. Um, let's see here. Okay. Next question. Timothy has a question. Um, will we be able to get a recorded session? Absolutely, Timothy. I will send that out. If not tonight, I'll send it out in the morning, a link, and I'll also send the design also with the link. Yes, Joyce. Yep, we'll definitely get recording for you. Send you the link. Let's see here. Abraham asked, is the D not too close? I mean, with this actually, that's a great question too. Just keep in mind that when you're working with these type designs, that everything doesn't have to be locked in a box, because with the D, um, you can always be creative with it actually. And what I mean by that is this: if the P is actually, I can always change the size of the P. I can just actually go in and just select. Well, this one's going to be difficult because this is the DST file. So let me go back here. Let's see here. Let me open up the EMB file. That's what I want. So here, with this, the beauty of being able to go in and do this, because if you're recognizing the fact that, you know what, these kind of close here, you could always go in and you could take the S. I'm using my arrow key at 3 o'clock. When the S, this nudge it over. Now, for this one here, because I branched everything, I would have to actually go in and break this apart first, and then go back in and move these. As I click here, I'm using my arrow keys at 3 o'clock. I can nudge it like this, which means I could also click here, press my control key down, click here, and nudge it down. You see what I'm doing? So you have full control over how you want this stuff to be actually, you know, and you have massively full control over pretty much everything. And that's why the digitizer is such a powerful figure in this embroidery market, actually, because we control the production basically. And now I can go back here and I can click on all these, shift here, and I can branch these again by right clicking, branching, tell it where I want to start, and tell it where I want to exit, just like that. So you can always go in and you can always change and edit things like this basically, and to get things to work. You don't have to allow the software or any software to hold you hostage. Great question. Let's see here. Who else I have? Dundee has a question also. Can you discuss the pull compensation of satins? What do you recommend? Now, like your lettering. Well, that'll be another class. But quickly, what I can tell you, Dundee, and that's something we'll go over and fully on another class. But for that, I'm going to zoom in here. So initially, whenever you want to go in and you want to widen a column, okay, a lot of people go in and they will click on the objects here. You're going to navigate to your pull comp setting, okay, and what a lot of people do is they will increase the size of the pull compensation, which is not the right thing to do, because the pull comp only compensates for the pull on the stretching of the fabric when it's stitching out on the machine. Does that make sense? Okay. And so for that, basically, I usually never go above 0.2 for that. I never had to, actually, because usually when I'm digitizing, I'm also compensating for everything while I'm digitizing, so that I don't have to worry about that. Okay. So, but if you wanted to go in and change the width on a column, you use column width. Now I changed mine to 0.10. So when I click here, it'll increase. On yours, if you have not changed it, it's probably at 1.0, and it's going to look like this, like a column on steroids. So anyway, but you can always take, I always start at 0.05. If that's not enough, I'll go 0.10, or I'll go 0.20, and you can scroll up this way also to increase that. And that's how you increase the column width of the objects on the screen, basically. Never with the pull compensation, okay? And let me tell you the danger of that. This is the danger of that. If I go in, I will see here real quick. I'll use a wide column fill like this. It's really wide here. Right click here. Now watch what happens here. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to have both of these selected here. And I'm going to go to my underlay setting. I'm going to make the first one edge run, underlay stitch. And I'll make the second one here a center run. Well, you know what, just leave it at edge run. So you see both of my edge runs here, correct? So watch what happens. I'm going in and I'm thinking that I'm going to thicken up the column width on this. So I'm going to click this one and I'm going to go column width. I'm sorry, pull comp. And I'm going to jack this up to 1.0. Now, with this, you see what happened? I'm going to undo this and I'm going to redo it. And this is with the just adjusting the column width here. Notice what's happening here also. Now on this one, I'm going to do I'm going to adjust the pull compensation by 1.0. Watch what happens here. I'm going to undo this and I'm going to redo it. What do you see happening here? Okay, I'll tell you what's happening. The edge run underlay stitch stayed in the same spot. Now the outside edge of my fill column here has no protection. And on the finished embroidery, it's going to look like a zigzag, like a feather effect on the outside of this one. Because basically for this one, I'd have to increase the pull comp for this in order for it to stitch this width when it's finished on the fabric, actually on the finished production actually. But the column width, it moves the edge run underlay stitch out accordingly. That's the difference of using that stitch actually, and it's huge. That a lot of people, I think a lot of people they may not have done the training, and that will affect it greatly also. But that's the reason why. Great question. All right. Madeline has a question. Can you explain how to find the types of materials to use for pull compensation? Generally, when you use Madeline, when you go in to your design and you use your auto fabric assistant, this basically here, by choosing this and going in and choosing the fabric type, it should adjust it accordingly, basically, based on the stitch type, the fabric that you're going to be stitching on. So I would use this, stitch out your samples to make sure everything is stitching correctly. And I would just use the auto fabric assistant. This actually does the work for you, really, is what it's designed to do for the different fabric types. Okay, that means the correct underlay stitches and that stuff as well. So I would use that. And you could do that also by, when you open up your program, you'll get this on your screen like this. All you have to do is go in and click on Use Auto Fabric, and you'll click on your down arrow here, and you will choose the fabric type that you're working with. Okay, and as you go in, you will choose your machine format here. Every design is going to be different actually, and you just click OK, and it'll apply that for the design that you're working with. Is what I would do for that one. Great question. Thank you, Abraham, for your kind words. Jenny has a question. Do all designs need to start in the middle? Well, it depends, Jenny, because some designs don't require that actually, because if you have a screen printer, or if you have a screen print shop and you're printing a screen print and you're adding embroidery to it, it may be in a different location actually. It would just depend. Or some people that use caps, they always start just above the bib of the cap and work your way towards 12 o'clock. And that's the best way to stitch a cap, from the bottom to the top, okay, and from the center out. So I would use that as a as a way to go in and do that actually. So it just depends on what you're doing for your customer at that particular moment. Okay, here. As I scroll down here, let's see. Amanda has a question that the auto stitch tool is going to be in, it's called auto digitizing tools inside your property. Inside, if you right click, make sure that your auto digitizing tools here is selected to put that on your screen. My pleasure, Marcia. Oh, Richard, Richard was speaking about the bringing in the DST file. You would have to go in and if you're going to import it in, again, you would go to File and you would choose Open, and you would have to, you could either choose it through all files here by going in and clicking it, or you can choose the specific file that you're working with here actually. And once you click it once, you won't click it twice because that'll be a problem. Once you click it once, you go to options and you'll make sure that objects and outlines here are checked and make sure the auto connectors are checked before you click OK. And then you open the file up. And that's how you'll open up the machine stitch data files, the machine files is what you'll use to open those up with. Brenda has a question also. What is the DGT file and what we do with it? That DGT file basically is it is a file that on some of the older machines, what they have is they have on the LDC display. They have to have this little. This is just a little picture of the design. Okay, and if you don't need it, just uncheck it. Okay, and just click OK if you don't need it, because if you don't, it'll save it every time you save the file. So if you don't need that, just uncheck that and click OK. And it's just a graphic of the actual design for the machine operator. Is what that does actually. You see here. Nancy, you said to practice the. Are you referring to the design that we're working on here, Nancy, or what are you referring to there? Okay, Hope has a question. I don't think I have the column C tool. Now, if you're, Hope, are you running decorating? And Heather, yes, I'm sending you the vector of the file. I'm sending you that also. Okay, if you're running decorating, in the decorating software, you're not going to have the icon here for the column C stitch. But the way that you'll access it is like this. Actually, you'll go in and let's say, for instance, if I have a running stitch here, and I go in, and you can actually right click on the object. You will scroll down to the bottom where it says convert, and you'll see your column C stitch here is where you'll find it actually. And you'll just click on it and press enter, and it'll change it if you're running decorating. So that's how you'll access your column C stitch if you're running the decorating. Okay. All right, let's see here. Jean has a question about the exit stitch when it's in the wrong spot. What happens with that is this, and I'll go back to my to the EMB file here. Now, as you go in and as you're looking at the files here on the screen, and if I click on like the D here, and I'm going to press S to hide the stitches. Now here, when I go to my reshape tool by pressing H, or let me do this on the actual fill stitch. There we are. On the fill, whatever stitch direction that you're going in, you know, let's say for instance, I never do a stitch angle going straight vertical, or I never do one going straight horizontal, because you don't want to do the stitch angle in the same weave of the garment. And if you have on a garment, either you'll be able to pull it from side to side, or you'll be able to pull it from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So that's why a 45-degree angle is a safe stitch angle to use in embroidery. And so based on this angle here, the stitch exit point needs to be polar opposite end here of the starting point. Because what happens is, if not, it will and has the propensity to put a line in the fill like this actually. So based on whatever stitch angle that is going to be sewing in would be the direction of the fill stitch. For instance, if you would do something like this, that means that either the exit point should be at 3 o'clock or at 9 o'clock, if it were like this, okay? But if I'm doing it at this angle here, I have to angle this exit point based on the stitch angle of my object on the screen, which you have control of if you're creating your designs actually. And you need to just make sure that it's on the polar opposite end of it to keep that line from going through the fill stitch. And sometimes, depending on the shape of it, it's not easy sometimes to do it. But we'll talk about the overlapping stitches on another class to show you how to go in and work with those to get those correctly. Marlene has a question. When should one go through Corel to digitize versus using the Instant Smart Design tool? Well, that would depend on it would depend on the file that you're working with. I found it, and we're gonna do some exercises on those also. I find it more successful when I've gone through Corel Draw to do a conversion. Okay, and again, that's always going to be based on the type of art file that you have. And but as far as the quality of the conversion, I've had more success going through Corel Draw doing it. And again, that's something that we're gonna go through also through our classes through this design series as well. Timothy, just send me your email address. You can send it to support@willcomeamerica.com. In the subject matter, just put James, and I'll send you a link to the class from last night. Now, even when you don't know that when you don't think you're going to make the class, I would register for all of them, because I always send out a link to the class the night of or in the morning to the class actually. So you could just send me your email address. I'll be more than happy to send that to you. Same thing for you, Nancy. And Deborah, you can send it to support@willcomeamerica.com. That way I can get them all in the same area. Okay. See here. Thank you, Sharon, for your kind words. Thank you for joining me today. Matthew has a question. I would also like the link. Okay, I will send that. Just send me your email addresses, guys. That's to support@willcomeamerica.com. Attention, James. Because from here I can't copy. Okay. And Jenny has another question here also. Export machine file to save it automatically. It comes up to Gma. And that file is type always been changed if assigned to in the software. I'm not sure what that question is, Jenny, actually. I would just email me. Like Patrick, yeah, thank you. You guys, yeah, just send me your emails. Heather has a question also. Okay, Heather, the sound. Okay, thank you for that. And Lorelai has a question as well. I'll be going over removing jump stitches in any of the future classes. Removing jump stitches. Send me a email, Lorelai, at support@willcomeamerica.com. Attention, James, in the subject matter, and come explain what type of jump stitches are you referring to. The jump from one object going to the next object, or from DST files. You can tell me exactly what you're referencing to and stuff. I can make sure that I cover it. Okay. Then there's a question also about navigating through the design. To navigate through the design, what I do if I'm in my reshape tool, once you click on an object here, and I'm going to press, you can press the tab key. The tab key advances the design in the order of the object that it was stitched. The tab key does that. Okay, and also in reshape tool, the tab key advances it. Okay, in the order in that it was digitized. The shift tab goes backwards. So that's how you can advance through the design if you're working on something to see where something is going, or to back it up. In moving the design, if I have to move the design, I'm not sure. I never used the pan tool. Actually, usually if I'm going to if I want to zoom into the design, if I want to do it full view, I'll press the 0 key up top after the 9 key for a full view. And I will do if I want to see it one-to-one, I'll press the number 1 key to see it. So I'm usually doing that with it. If I have to go in and pan or something like that and stuff, I'll just so used to using the mouse to roll back and forth and things like that. Is what I use mostly with that, actually. So I've never used the actual pan tool in there. Yes, Amanda, I'll be sure that you'll get a class, the recording of the class. And again, you'll send it to support@willcomeamerica.com. In the subject matter, just put attention, James. Ms. Brenda, it's my pleasure. Yep, I'll send the vector file also. And Heather says, when discussing about sewing out the samples, you said not to test on backing fabric. Yes, I'm referring to the stabilizer, Heather. And Laurel has a question here. That's the remove jump stitches. Again, just send me an email about that and stuff, and I'll be more exact for you, Lorelei. Julie has a question also about the XXX files. Yeah, that's something there. Send me an email about that, because that's something more support related there, Julie, and I'll get with you about that. Okay, here. Let's go here. All right. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, Lorelei, that's the jump stitches from Purchase Designs. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next session, actually. The email address is going to be support@willcomeamerica.com. And in the subject matter, just put attention, James. Okay. And thank you so much, guys, for your time today. And thank you for your patience with me. Again, that recording will be sent out tonight of this class or in the morning. And I'll send out the recording for yesterday's class also again. And so thank you again for your time. We ask you that you join us at www.willcomeamerica.com. And as always, happy digitizing. See you next time.